All right, folks, we are recording. I don't believe there are any announcements, so we'll just jump right in with the web form updates with James Danzig. Oh, and just give me a moment to get that up on the screen. Sorry about that, Jane.
That's okay. Thanks, Hannah. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the timing for web forms rollout, turning off EForms and turning on web forms. And I also have a few slides just to give you a preview. The Form 4 is our last form to revise to reflect the mission change rules. And so I thought I'd just give you a little, like I said, a preview. So that's it. Thanks for being here. Here we go. Next slide, please, Hannah. So our anticipated timing for switching EForms off and turning web forms on is September 15th for everybody. On September 1st, we're going to be reaching out to just a few users in industry to have them start using web forms. Staff has been using the web form interface for all of their work on a number of forms for about a month now. And there's lots of glitches that we're identifying. And for a smooth release on the 15th, we would like to have a few industry folks use it as well. Doesn't matter how hard we test things, there's always something we don't anticipate. And we'd like to get those things ironed out before everyone's on the web form platform. Next slide, please, Hannah. So here's all of our forms, and most of them were revised either with the Wellbore Integrity Rulemaking in 2019 or the Mission Change Rulemaking in 2020. So we continue to find glitches. A lot of work was done on these forms, and inevitably there are things that don't work right, and frustratingly there are things that work right one day and then the next day they don't. I will never understand that part, but we are getting input from industry users on the EForms. Some things aren't always working right, and of course lots from staff. I just want to remind you that if you have trouble with a form, please use the contact folks in these lists here, because each of them is, by handling all the issues on a particular form, they're aware of what's been fixed, and they're also aware of things that just actually aren't glitches. So I just want to remind you that these are your points of contact, even though maybe these individuals aren't your favorite person for that particular form, they're still the experts on the revisions, and they are still doing the work that it takes to get from a reported problem to the solution. So the way it works is you send an email to the right person for the form you're struggling with. You describe the problem in the email. You include screenshots of error messages or whatever as appropriate. And you include the document number of the form that you're actually working on. So the staff contact will relay the problem on to our IT folks. They will resolve it, and they will correct the form live. They will go in, they'll put the new code in so that it's fixed instantly. And what that means is that you will have to, and the form contact person will get back to you when that's been done. But for you to then in your work have access to the updated form, the thing that's been fixed, you have to clear your cache and sometimes your browsing history, and you have to close out of EForms and you have to go back into EForms. Otherwise, you're still in the old form that had the problem. So next slide, please, Hannah. So right now, you're using Internet Explorer to work in EForms. And next month, you're going to be using Chrome as your browser to work in web forms. And these are the steps that I just outlined. You're going to need to log out of the form. You're going to clear your cache, delete your browsing history, whatever, for the browser you're using. Then you're going to open a new window in your browser and you're going to log back into EForms and soon web forms so that you're then working on the form that's been fixed by our IT guys. I've got a few slides here to show you how to do that, but you need to contact, if you have IT support staff, to verify and confirm with them what steps you need to take to be sure that you're in the updated form. Because browsing histories and caches do weird things and it looks like it's not fixed when in fact it is. So next slide, please, Miss Hannah. So for Internet Explorer, you go to the tools, you select Internet options. Next slide, Hannah. You go to browsing history, you click delete, it pops open a window. Oh, sorry, I have a question on there for Bryce. He didn't get back to me. You're gonna check, you know, that you're getting ready of the history. You're gonna click delete. Next slide, please, Hannah. And then you're gonna click OK, and then you're gonna have a notice that pops up that says everything's cleared out, and you close it, and you should be good to go. This is how I do it on my system. And it's pretty hilarious that I'm giving you this information because I don't understand how any of this works, but I'm just trying to be helpful. So if you have IT support staff, please go to them and they'll say, no, ours doesn't work this way, but I'm just giving you the heads up. Next slide, please, Miss Hannah. So we have to use Chrome for web forms. We've got these handy, important notices to remind you that you have to use Chrome for web forms. So in a month, you're going to be doing that. Next slide, please, Miss Hannah. So in Chrome, it's different. And this is how it looks on my screen, that you click on those three dots and then you select settings in a menu that pops up. Next slide, Hannah. You click privacy and security and you click clear browsing data. And then next slide, Hannah. And then you've got to make some selections here. And then you finally click at the bottom, clear data. Next slide, please, Hannah. And that's it. So again, it is ridiculous that I'm trying to give you IT advice and instructions because I'm the least qualified. I'm just flagging this issue for you because as issues have come up and we're trying to get them fixed, we've had industry folks say, but it's not fixed and it's not fixed. And we say, did you clear out? Did you open a new window? Did you log out? Did you log back in? The whole thing. So hopefully this will make things go a little smoother as we address issues that just continually come up. So, like I said, the poor old Form 4 is the last form for us to make the revisions required by the mission change rulemaking. The current status is that staff is testing the revisions. I estimate that we'll be done testing and we'll release it in EForms on September 1st. Plus or minus. We'll have some training or Q&A on the Form 4 at the operator meeting. Our next one is September 14th, unless something changes. But here I've got some slides just to give you previews of the changes. And note that since we're still testing, these are drafts. And when it actually gets released, it might look a little bit different. But I just wanted to give you a heads up of what's coming. Okay, next slide, Hannah. So the wizard looks a little different. The groundwater sampling can only be submitted for a facility or a location. It can't be submitted by well. And we're adding the ability to file a Form 4 for an OGDP, an oil and gas development plan. And you'll be using the ID of that OGDP. On all of these slides, I've got a green box that tells what group you're going to contact or individual, and that the last slide will show you who that person is. But in general, it's who are the people that know the most about these changes. Next slide, please, Hannah. So on the first tab, the well facility location tab, it's also an OGDP tab now. It's got some new data fields that will be auto-populated when you file the sundry either for a location or for an OGDP. And the contact person for that is in the OGLA group. Next slide, please, Hannah. The next tab, the well location change as built GPS tab, is now only for wells. We moved the ground elevation data field, and the contact for this tab will be permitting. Next slide, please, Hannah. This is other changes on that same tab. We've added the data fields to allow you to change the base of the productive zone, which is now on your permits. We've updated the safety setback information that is required when you're changing a surface location. We've made it to line up with the way the Form 2 is now. Next slide, please, Hannah. And we did the same thing for the subsurface mineral setback information. If you're changing the top and or the base of the productive zone footage, you're going to need to update this information, and it will look just like it looks on the Form 2 right now. And we have the exception location checkbox. Again, permitting is the contact for this part of the sundry. Next slide, please, Hannah. We've changed the formation and spacing tab because even though we've had it forever, it never really did what we wanted it to do. It allowed you to add a new formation, new spacing, but it never removed the old stuff. So we've updated it to have that functionality that we never had. And again, this is a permitting part of the form. Next slide, please, Hannah. So the other tab has some changes. It has everything it always had, but these are the new things. So a 502B variance or 502 variance, with the mission change rules, it requesting a variance requires filing a hearing application. So this is not a request. The order, when the commission, if they grant a variance, the order may contain instructions for the operator to file a sundry or maybe multiple sundries, essentially to get the approval of the variance in the file, in the well file, in the location file, and a facility file. This is the section that you'll utilize for that. So that's a big change. On the current Form 4, the 502 variance box is a request, and that has changed with the mission change rules. For confidentiality, we've updated the checkbox to indicate that it is only for the confidentiality request for well records. The new rules have Rule 223 for other confidential information, and that's handled in a different process. So this is now just specific to well records and not to that new rule. And there's a new field for compliance with a condition of approval, and you'll use it however the COA on another form tells you to use it. Next slide, please, Hannah. There's no changes to the reclamation tab. Next slide, please, Hannah. So there are several changes to the engineering and environmental tab. Things are added, things were taken away. Your contacts for that would be engineering or environmental, depending on what it is. Next slide, please, Hannah. These are new sections on the engineering and environmental tab. The upper one is about Rule 909J6. It's for water samples. And then there's a new section for Rule 312, which is the requirement to obtain approval for subsequent well operations with heavy equipment at an existing well or location. Next slide, please, Hannah. There are no changes on the casing and cementing tab. Next slide, please. Thank you. There's two new check boxes on the H2S tab. Next slide, Hannah. And there are two new tabs. This is the first of the new tabs. This is the oil and gas location updates tab, which is pretty huge. And of course, the OGLA group would be the contact for this tab. Next one, Hannah. And this is the other new tab. It's proposed oil and gas development plan changes. The Rule 301C says that if you need to make a change to an OGDP, you send in a sundry, and this is the tab you use for that. And this isn't to approve the change. This is to communicate to staff that you need to make a change, and here's where you check some boxes that might line up with your changes, or you just describe some other change that we don't have a checkbox for. When staff processes and approves this sundry, they will tell you how to make the change. And some changes will be a sundry for a well or a sundry for a location. Some changes may require a new 2 or a new 2A or a new hearing application for an OGDP. So again, this is an upper level communication. Essentially, you're requesting instructions from the director, which means staff, on how to get approval for whatever you want to change for an oil and gas development plan. This will not approve that change. It's going to provide instruction as to how to obtain that approval. And like I said, it could be multiple steps. And so that'll be like in a condition of approval on this sundry. It'll say, operator will file, boom, 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 like that. So it's a whole new deal, like a lot of our new mission change rules. And OGLAs will be your contact for this. Next slide, please, Miss Hannah. So this is the groundwater sampling tab. If you check out on the wizard, groundwater sampling, of course, this is all you come to when your Form 4 opens. The only changes here are updates to with the new rule numbers for whatever you're doing. Next slide, please, Hannah. So back to that Rule 312 section, which will be on the new Form 4. It's not on the current Form 4. We already have some published guidance for that. Hey, Hannah, can you move your cursor? Because it's kind of covering up the search. Do you see your cursor on this screen? That's okay. Don't worry about it. Forget it. So anyway, if you go to the guidance for mission change rules and you put 312 in the search box there in the upper right, it'll pull up this guidance document. And this will help you know how to use that new section of the sundry. And of course, this guidance document will have to be updated to make it look like the new sundry, but it's a start. Next slide, please, Hannah. So here are the staff contacts for the Form 4. John will be the contact for any environmental parts of the form. Arthur is for any of the groundwater sampling. Rebecca is the contact for the OGLA parts of the form. Craig Berger for the engineering, and Laurel for the permitting. So all those green boxes that says contact OGLA or permitting, these are the people you contact. Don't just contact your favorite permitter or your favorite engineer. Please send your questions or concerns to these individuals, because they will be handling all the questions for their part of our Form 4, which is got a lot of stuff on it. So I think that's my last slide, Hannah.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane, for that great presentation. Let's see if do you want to take questions now, or Greg has a couple quick OGDP topics to go over. So we'll let him go over those, and then folks can just chat their questions then, and we'll take them at the end.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to suggest the other path, but we'll go down this road. Well, thanks. Great presentation, Jane. There was a lot of information in there. I think that new Form 4 will be excellent. So I just had a couple notes kind of from OGLA staff as we've been reviewing the OGDPs that folks have been submitting, and wanted to let folks know we have 5 OGDPs that have passed through our completeness process and are in technical review, and 15 OGDPs are somewhere in our completeness process, whether that's here in our shop being reviewed, or whether they've been reviewed and sent back to the operator. At this stage in the game, most OGDPs are not passing through completeness on sort of the first try. We are pushing them back and getting additional information. And I would say the responsiveness from operators has been great on those questions. I think our staff is trying to do a very detailed review of the completeness and give you guys the information that you need to then come back with a submittal that gets through the second time through. So we appreciate that. And on that note, we have had some issues. We are assigning a lead OGLA to each OGDP, and that is the OGLA that is assigned as the reviewer. When you look at the dashboard on EForms and in the future web forms, the OGLA that's the reviewer is the OGLA that you should be contacting and communicating with. We also have various subject matter experts assigned to different areas of the form and the application. But we do want your communication when if you receive communication back on your OGDP application and you have questions about it, bring those questions back to the lead OGLA, please. You may copy the subject matter expert if you happen to know who that subject matter expert is, but we want to make sure that the lead OGLA is keeping track of the questions that are coming in on their forms, so that we can make sure that we continue to process those forms timely. we want the lead OGLA to be the clearinghouse for each oil and gas development plan. And I will put some slides together. I didn't have a chance to put some slides together, but I will put some quick slides with these notes. I'll try and find some pictures so that I can try and keep up with Jane. So I also want to note that, you know, our review has two phases, the completeness review and the technical review. Just because something passes through completeness does not mean that you will not be asked to clarify, modify, or supplement the information during technical review. Completeness review is still not an in-depth analysis of the information submitted. It's making sure that we have what we need to conduct the in-depth analysis. So, you know, don't be surprised when, you know, something passes completeness, but then you're getting questions and having to take a plan back and make some modifications to it. That's going to happen. And then also I want to point out that the commission can ask for additional information once an application is in front of them. So even information that the director has waived in the completeness review process, the commission may turn around and say, look, we want to see that. So as these first oil and gas development plans move towards commission hearing, you know, be mindful of the fact that the commission may ask for more information until they get their feet underneath them fully. The one thing that we've seen a lot of, and it's caused delays, are errors and discrepancies between the technical forms and the hearing applications. This absolutely causes delays in the processing of your application. If we go through all of the technical documents and we know the number of wells, we know you know, the type of equipment, and the size of the disturbance, and then we've worked with you back and forth on all of that, and then we turn to the hearing application, and it doesn't match, we have a problem, and we don't know what's right, and so the wheels kind of fall off at that point. So make sure that when you are submitting your application, you are doing a QA check on that hearings application with the technical forms to make sure that those documents are lined up. And then as things change, you know, we know that things change while you guys are developing your application materials. Make sure that both of the tracks are being updated as things change. Public comments are coming in on the oil and gas development plans that are in process for technical review. And so the ones that come in on the Form 2A, we're reviewing as part of our technical review. And ones that timely come in the hearings application, we are also reviewing, you know, those if they are timely to our technical review. There is no cutoff on the ability of folks to come into the hearings application process and bring comments. So be prepared to, you know, and you should get notice when things are uploaded to that hearings file. Be prepared to address public comments that come in that period after the director's recommendation, after we've completed our technical review, after the Form 2A public comment period, and the time that you go before the commissioner or hearings officer with your application. So there may be public comments that that come in that time period. Again, I will put all these notes that I'm referring to on a little presentation, and we'll get it up on the website for today's training. Sorry, I didn't have that done. So, and then the last thing I want to touch on is PWS data. I recognize that we still are operating, you know, the COGCC is still operating with the old 317B data as the foundation for what we have on our maps. And while that is a good resource, I still would caution you that it may not be complete, it may not be 100%. And the applicant still needs to take measures to ensure that their application is protective of public water system intakes. And so, you have tools at your disposal beyond just our maps. And we are working with the Water Quality Control Division to get our maps updated and made current. But you have tools. Look at if you're near a stream, who are the downstream utilities? Are you within downstream municipalities? Are you within 5 stream miles of a downstream municipality? You should reach out to that municipality, even if something is not mapped, and say, do you have a surface water public water system intake? And they can help you out with that. Look at the water well data within 2 miles of your oil and gas location. Review the names on those water wells. Do any of them sound like a county or municipality? Examples could be a YMCA camp. That might be a public water system well. A county municipality may own the well. A camp or a church may fall under the PWS regs. So there are sources of information. You can also reach out directly to CDPHE, to the Water Quality Control Division, and work with them. In terms of determining whether it's a GUDI or a type 3 aquifer well, you'd have to open up, if you see one of those wells that's that appears to be a public water supply well, or public water system supply well, you can open up the well records and conduct an evaluation as to whether or not that falls into a type 3 aquifer well. So we are working towards getting our maps updated, but in the meantime, please use the resources that are external to our maps. That's all that I have. Again, I apologize for not having a presentation, but I will put it out. I will put one together so that you all can refer to this. And now I guess we'll turn to questions unless there's any other topics that we need to cover.
Great job. Thank you, Greg. I don't believe we have any other topics, but folks can let me know if they do have a last minute item. On to the questions. The first one is, what if the operator already had the conversation with the COGCC regarding a change to a 2A and got confirmation it would be a sundry per email? Would we be able to skip the request of asking via form submission to make a change if we already went down this path with the COGCC staff? And I think that one, okay, yeah, Greg.
Great.
Trying to unmute, had things popping up on my screen, sorry. So if a 2A is not associated with an approved oil and gas development plan, just submit the sundry as we've done in the past. Our policy or guidance on this has not changed. Indicate all changes included on the sundry, and we will review and approve those changes directly, and we will notify you if there are other forms that you need to submit. The only time that you need to submit a sundry to request sort of the instructions is when you are requesting changes to an approved oil and gas development plan, and that's when we've got that sort of 2-step process. If the changes you want to make are part of an approved oil and gas development plan, you submit the sundry using the OGDP ID number, describe the changes you are requesting, and then staff will inform you which you will need to submit to request those changes. So right now, with no approved oil and gas development plans, everything can be submitted on a sundry, and if we determine that the changes are substantial enough that they need additional forms, then we will advise you in accordance with the guidance that's still on our website.
Thank you, Greg. The next question is staff sending the latest completeness review spreadsheet to the operator when the OGDP passes completeness?
So no, once we send the OGDP completeness review spreadsheet when we identify the errors and deficiencies that prevent it from passing completeness. Once it passes completeness, then we're into the technical review. And so staff will just contact operators directly for any additional information or corrections needed as part of that technical review.
Thank you, Greg. The next question is, what is the status of the balance of guidance documents for Form 2A plans and drawings?
We are still working on guidance for plans and drawings. We are, our guidance documents are being informed by what we're seeing on the oil and gas development plans that are coming in. And we are working through several of those and hope to, continue to put them out. I think we got a bunch out in June, a couple in July, and I don't believe we've released any in August yet. So we continue to work on them, and I recognize that that's slow and frustrating.
Thanks, Greg. The next question is, will our current eForm user ID/passwords be used to access web forms? And then there's a second question with that. If we have forms currently drafted in eForm, will they get transferred into web forms?
The answer to those questions is yes. You'll use the same credentials to log into web forms as you've been using for eForms. And yes, anything that's pending in eForms will appear magically in web forms.
Great, thank you, Jane. And the next question is, to confirm, is the September 14th meeting mentioned going to be a training on how to use web forms?
We can do a walkthrough. It's not that different. It really, really isn't. It looks different. There's a few things, but overall, it's pretty much just works the same. But yeah, we'll do a walkthrough. I might even take the chance of doing a live walkthrough of web forms, and we'll also have some more information for the new parts of the Form 4.
Thanks, Jane. And the next question is, if commission requests additional information during the hearing, this may result in a continuance to another hearing date. Would this be next hearing, or does it depend?
I think that's a wait and see. They may be able to continue it until the afternoon. They may be able to continue it to the following week, or they may send someone back to the drawing board. We just don't know what that'll look like.
All right, that looks like all the questions for now, but we'll just give folks another few minutes to type their questions in.
Hannah, I have some instructions. I know there's a few attorneys attending today. That's great. We always like you to know what your clients are hearing. And I have a request for the attorneys. When you file an amended hearing application, it would be so helpful to staff who look at the original and then the amendment and then the next amendment, if you would redline those documents. Some folks are doing that. It's great. They strike through the old language. They put bold for the new language, so it's instantly clear to staff what got changed. But some folks are not doing that, and some of the hearing applications are pretty long, and it's pretty brutal trying to figure out what got changed. And this is particularly important now that hearing applications are being reviewed by multiple technical groups. The permitting group looks at them, the OGLA group looks at them, the engineering group looks at them. So if I'm looking out for my permitting staff, they go to a docket, they see that an amended application has been filed, and they need to look at it again. and there's no red line. They have no idea what got changed. And maybe it was a change in response to the OGLA review that said, hey, the Form 2 said this, and the 2A says this, and your hearing application said that. What's the deal? And you determine that, oh my goodness, we've got the wrong number in the hearing application. And so an amended application is filed, and it's changing one number in how many pages. So we would request that you please red line amended applications. That's it.
All right, thank you, Jane. And the next question is, will historic EForms submitted prior to the switchover be available in a search function?
Gosh, I don't think I understand that question, but maybe my explanation will answer it for you. So what we see as eForms and what we see as web forms are simply user interfaces. So when you submit an eForm, all of that data goes into a database. And when you pull up the eForm, it pulls it out and we look at it. They are interacting with that same set of data. So all of our search functions will be the same. Everything will be the same. It's just that the interface of web forms looks a little bit differently. Does that answer that question? Sorry, Jeff.
All right, thanks, Jane. They said yes, so good job. And the next question is, will there be guidance for the variance process, specifically variance owner variances, surface owner variances?
I can't answer that. Maybe Mr. Cuthbertson can answer that. Maybe we'll just say yes, there'll be guidance.
I think I recall
Scott's nodding
talking about it, and that it's being reviewed right now, right?
Well,
Yeah, I think there will definitely have to be guidance on the variance process, because that is a new process with the variances going before the commission. And specifically to what Jane talked about with the sort of, again, the two-step process, the application for a variance will go to the commission, and the commission may include it in their order. Hopefully will tell you what forms to file with staff to effectuate the variance. And so, that will be spelled out certainly in a guidance document specific to the surface owner variances. I can't speak to how that will roll into that overall picture.
All right, sorry, and Scott, you should be able to unmute now. My apologies about that.
That's okay, no worries. Greg did a good job, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
I didn't realize it was a technical issue. I thought you were just like, holding my feet to the fire and playing last man standing.
The insurance salesman rule, he who speaks first loses.
Okay, and we have another question. Does COGCC ever anticipate developing a batch sundry to submit one sundry for multiple wells? And then in parentheses, BLM recently added that functionality, and it has been very helpful for both submitters and reviewers.
So Hannah, I think that question must have been chatted directly to you.
Oh,
And so I would say that's not currently on our development radar, but maybe that is something that you could email to us as something we can consider down the road.
all right, I'm just gonna copy and paste it into everybody so everybody can see it. And then another question is, following up to the guidance for variance process, do you have a time frame?
No.
Okay, we'll give folks another few minutes to type their questions in. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. Looks like I got them all. While we're waiting for questions, the next meeting will be Tuesday, September 14th, unless something happens and we need to change it. An example is if the commission scheduled one of their meetings on that day, then we would not be able to use our Zoom license because we share it. So Tuesday, September 14th is the next meeting. And if you want to be added to the operator email list, then please email me at the email listed there on your screen. Hopefully you can see that, and make sure you get the last name right. Otherwise, I will not get your email. And let's see, I think we'll give folks another minute or two to type questions in, just in case someone has a long question they're typing. All right, well, I think I'm going to call it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today to learn from us, and we'll see you on Tuesday, September 14th. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.